All right. So today I've got a actual presentation rather than just a decode. And what I'm going to be talking about today is a German Jewish chemist whose name was Fritz Haber. And Fritz Haber was responsible for a lot of realities of the modern lifestyle, including mass agriculture, because he developed chemically enriched fertilizing methods. And his research with that, because it involved mixing gases together, also branched off into chemical warfare. So he was responsible for the supposed first chemical attacks in World War One. He was actually directly responsible for that. But later, his research um, on chemical agriculture and insecticides eventually led to the creation of a gas, a toxic gas called Zyklon B. And if you've never heard of Zyklon B before, it's what was supposedly used by the Nazis on Jewish prisoners in concentration camps. And I'm going to focus on the numbers 113, 33, and 223 for this presentation because they all are tightly knitted together by this man, Fritz Haber. And before I move on, I just want to mention that when Fritz Haber died, there were about 2.5 billion people in 1934. And right now on Earth, there are approximately 7, 8 billion people living here, is what they report. And that's, 5 billion more people in less than 100 years. And it's because of this guy. Well, that's what they tell us, that he's the one who came up with the chemical fertilizing methods, which allowed for massive agriculture and cheap food and a lot of food. So here's Fritz Haber. I particularly like this picture on the left here, where he's got his eyes rolled back into his head and he's staring at this big black nothingness. And I think that is kind of the embodiment of a person who does this work, staring into the future that has no meaning. He probably really reveled in his research. You know? These people got 5 billion more people to work for them since this guy's death. And, these people are crazy. Okay, so let's move on. Fritz Haber lived a total of 65 years, 1 month, and 20 days. And why do I think that's important? Well, with numerology, 6 plus 5, 65 years. 6 plus 5 equals 11. And 1 month and 20 days with numerology, 1 plus 2, we don't count the 0, that equals 3. And when you add that, when you connect those, it's 11 and 3, which looks like 113. And coincidentally, Fritz Haber equals 103 in English Ordinal, which is the most basic cipher, where A equals 1 and Z equals 26. There are 26 letters in the English alphabet. Fritz Haber, for his research on fertilizing methods, specifically the ammonia-based fertilizer, led him to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And he was a Nobel laureate then, which equals 131, which looks a lot like 113. And Nobel winner equals 131 as well. Nobel Peace Medal, that might be a stretch. That equals 113, just like Fritz Haber. And he won this Peace Medal, this Nobel Peace Medal, for his work on a nitrogen fertilizer. They needed nitrogen in the soil. And he did this by making the molecule ammonia, which is NH3. And notice that nitrogen fertilizer equals 113 in English full reduction, which is the English alphabet with the rules of numerology. And ammonia in satanic, which is a very important cipher, is 311. Note that toxins in satanic is also 311. Now, I mean, what I'm kind of trying to get with this is that I don't think that Fritz Haber was definitely the one person who studied this fertilizing method, and came up with this random fertilizer from ammonia. I think there was probably research teams doing this for a long time, and he was the head man. They needed somebody to sell this fertilizer, right? They needed somebody so that they could say, look, this man invented it. There isn't this big group of scientists working on it. Nobody was putting things into the soil before. It was this man. He started it, right? And they decided to use ammonia as the first chemically enriched fertilizer, right? And it just so happens that ammonia equals 311 in satanic, just like toxins. And with that, I just want to remind people about Bava Kamma 113a in the Babylonian Talmud, which does state that Jews can lie to Gentiles in a legal setting. And most countries, every single place you go is a legal setting because you're bound by laws. You're in the bondage of the legal system. You cannot escape it. You have to obey the laws or else you're breaking the laws. So, the waters are extremely muddy as to what isn't a legal setting and what is a legal setting. Let's move on. So remember how I said eventually his research led to the formation of Zyklon B, the chemical responsible supposedly for gassing the Jews during the Holocaust. Well, gassing equals 113 in reverse ordinal, which is the English alphabet backwards. Z equals 26. Z equals 1, while A equals 26. And note that gassing equals 33 in septenary. And if you don't know about septenary, it is the symmetrical cipher where it escalates in value from A equals 1 up to G equals 7, and then it de-escalates in value to the middle of the alphabet. So H then equals 6, and I equals 5, and then it goes to M equals 1. And that's the first side, the first symmetrical half of the alphabet. So to make the other side symmetrical, we do N equals 1 up to T equals 7, and then Z equals 1 as the value de-escalates from the letter T, which equals 7. So just remember that it's a symmetrical cipher. And it's very fruitful in this presentation. So, like the focal point of gassings, the focal point of the Holocaust is kind of the gassings in Nazi concentration camps. That's what all the Holocaust movies have. It's just an extremely important point that they need to get out there. And remember that the gas that they used was Zyklon B. And by no mistake, Holocaust equals 33 in English full reduction, which is the English alphabet with the rules of numerology. And Zyklon B equals 33 in the same cipher. That right there should be a red flag to anybody who is willing to listen to this research. There's something odd about that, right? So let's move on. Zyklon B was actually based on an insecticide called hydrogen cyanide, which is also known as prussic acid. And what hydrogen cyanide was used for was to fumigate citrus trees before they modified it to gas people. And note that in the septenary cipher, insects equals 33, and prussic from prussic acid equals 33 in the English full reduction cipher, just like Zyklon B and Holocaust. And prussic acid, which is hydrogen cyanide, is it's interesting because it was discovered as a ion found in the color Prussian blue. If you have ever painted, there's paint sets that have the color Prussian blue. Well, there's a molecule in it called ferrocyanide, which happens to look like a six-pointed star, just like the Star of David. And that is the color that was isolated to create hydrogen cyanide. And let's look at the name hydrogen cyanide and its nickname prussic acid. Remember that ferrocyanide ions were isolated from the color Prussian blue, and that's where we get the name prussic, Prussian, right? Also, let's look at the name hydrogen cyanide and just cyanide. Cyanide has the root cyan, and cyan is a color in English, and in Greek, its root means blue. And it's just so coincidental that, blue is the color of the Israeli flag. It has the Star of David in it. And here it is, ferrocyanide, the ion isolated to make hydrogen cyanide and prussic acid, looks like a Star of David. And it comes from a blue pigment. But it gets more fishy. Right? Remember I said hydrogen cyanide and prussic acid, it was used to fumigate citrus trees. Well, if you research Gematria, you know that orange is the only color of the alphabet that equals 33 in the base ciphers. Also note that lemons, right? Oranges and lemons are the citruses that probably would have been grown with the hydrogen cyanide. Lemons in single reduction, where S equals 10, instead of 1, right? Because S is the 19th letter, 1 plus 9 equals 10. And then that's a single reduction for the letter S. It's the only letter that you need to reduce twice to get to a single digit. So in the single reduction cipher, S equals 10 instead of 1. So lemons in single reduction equals 33. Orange equals 33. Prussic equals 33. Insects equals 33. Prussic acid was used as a fumigation method on citrus trees to kill insects before it was modified into Zyklon B, which killed Jewish people in the Holocaust, allegedly. And I'm not saying that nobody died in the Holocaust. I'm just saying this is the story that we're given, and it's heavily encoded with Gematria. So you have to question why. Are they covering something up? Or is this just natural? I cannot imagine this could just be a natural coincidence. And you'll see why once we get into the Nuremberg Trials and their evidence for the use of Zyklon B. So another thing to note, when you type in hydrogen cyanide on Google, it brings up a picture of an almond. Well, that's because almonds produce hydrogen cyanide. And almonds in the single reduction method equals 33 as well. Single reduction is basically one of the 4 base ciphers. Just very coincidental. And let's go back to Fritz Haber's research on ammonia. So he was a chemist who developed an ammonia-based nitrogen fertilizer that allowed humans to cultivate large quantities of food from seed in places that previously couldn't handle agriculture due to low levels of nitrogen in the soil. I guess there was a famine going on when they supposedly introduced this ammonia-based fertilizer. And again, this fertilizer allowed humans to cultivate produce on a mass scale, which eventually led to an extra 5 billion people on Earth. Something that is said to be an overpopulation by the elites, such as Bill Gates, and, cultivate equals 113, just like Fritz Haber in English Ordinal. Fritz Haber was supposedly responsible for the mass cultivation based on his research on ammonia-based fertilizing methods. And note that Fritz Haber was a chemist, an extremely important and famous chemist. A chemist equals 33 in English full reduction, like Zyklon B and Holocaust and Prussic. And chemist in septenary equals 33. Also note that nitrogen equals 33 in septenary. And note that they're always mentioning him putting nitrogen in the soil, right? However, ammonia has hydrogen in it as well. I'm guessing they always say nitrogen, he put nitrogen in the soil because nitrogen equals 33, while hydrogen does not. And something that they said about Fritz Haber is that he pulled bread from air, right? He pulled the bread from air because he was mixing nitrogen and hydrogen gas to make ammonia, so it could be sprayed onto dirt to make fertilizer, right? So he pulled ammonia from the air, literally. which went into the ground, and that made a whole lot of bread. Note that seed equals 33 in English ordinal, wheat equals 33 in reverse single reduction. So H equals 10 instead of 1, because H equals 19 in reverse English ordinal. In reverse English, Gematria. And in reverse full reduction, bread equals 33, and sugar equals 33 in reverse single reduction. And I also remember he was a Jewish German chemist. I don't know how you could even get more evil. And I try not to have really too big of a public opinion on religion, but I don't like to have a public view of religion. I don't think it's good. I think people make assumptions about you about it. But I will say that, it seems that Jesus was a black man, and with all the kind of harassment of the image of Jesus, right? That the people in power do. It seems like what they're doing is they're saying, "Look at this man. He was a Jewish German chemist, right? And he casted bread, right? He's the one who did it." And I don't want to get into a debate about Jesus. With me, it's a murky debate as well. But there is that mentality that is there, that they do like to take a dump on the image of Jesus, which is, it's interesting that they said he pulled bread from air, right? That's what I'm saying. Not saying anything religious. So don't get mad at me. Okay. Again, Fritz Haber's research led to many realities of the modern lifestyle, such as massive agriculture that led to a lot of things, such as cheap food, overpopulation, pollution on an immense scale, chemically saturated environments, climate change, and animal extinctions. And eventually, his research also led to chemical warfare. And like I said, in World War I, he had a direct impact on it. And in World War II, he died right before kind of World War II started. But he had more of an indirect impact on it. If he did die at the age they claim he did. He could have just been, he could have had a fake death. He could have researched, right? Afterwards. But what they say is that he had an indirect association with Zyklon B. And let's go on to the Nuremburg Trials, right? So the Nuremburg Trials were the global accusations of the Nazi Party, right? They had a bunch of Nazis come out and get persecuted or whatever. And in some of the Nuremberg Trials, right, they came out and said, okay, we found these labels for Zyklon B in the Nazi concentration camps. And the labels note, say, gift gas with an exclamation mark on it, right? Zyklon gift gas, right? Getting a gift, right? I think it's probably German, but note that gift gas with an exclamation mark equals 33 in English full reduction, just like Zyklon B, and just like Holocaust. Right? And another thing that I noticed is that concentration camp, the abbreviation for concentration camp, CC, is like, it looks like 33 because C is the third letter of the alphabet. And oh yeah, these labels were supposedly found at Dachau, right? It's a really famous, infamous concentration camp, right? And Dachau is pretty interesting because it allegedly began operations in 1933 on March 22nd. And March 22nd, March being the third year, looks a lot like 322. Note that it was found in 1933, right? 33. Gift gas equals 33 in English full reduction. Holocaust equals 33 in English full reduction. Zyklon B equals 33 in English full reduction. Prusik equals 33 in English full reduction. Right? So this number 322, there couldn't be a better date for Dachau to begin operations. Kind of on an unrelated note, loosely unrelated, blood equals 223 in the Satanic cipher, and Nobel equals 223 in the Satanic cipher, right? Fritz Haber won a Nobel Peace Prize for his research on ammonia-based fertilizers, which ended up being research that led to chemical warfare. Chems, chemicals, chems equals 223 in the Satanic cipher. And in reverse single reduction, it also equals 33. Remember that bread, sugar, wheat, seed, nitrogen, chemist, all equal 33. And chemicals were an important part of making a lot of bread. And, the group in Revelation, kind of my understanding from my research has led me to believe that the people who are responsible for our iterations of the Bible are the Synagogue of Satan, the Freemasons, all the secret societies, right? They are responsible for a lot of the evils in the world, and they let people know. Note that, like Nobel and blood and the date that Dachau was beginning its operations, the Synagogue of Satan in the English Ordinal equals 223. And I guess you could say one of the most infamous sects of the Synagogue of Satan is Skull and Bones, which is the secret society that George W. Bush and his father, George H.W. Bush, and George W. Bush's opponent, John Kerry, they all belong to Skull and Bones, right? Coming out of Yale Law School. Remember how I said the entire world's a legal setting? Bava Kamal 113a. Skull and Crossbones, like the Synagogue of Satan, equals 223. And what do you know? Nitrogen fertilizer equals 223 in English Ordinal as well. And I just want to mention that nitrogen fertilizer, in half of the articles that I read, it's spelled with an S, and half of the articles, it's spelled with a Z. Well, that's because, it phonetically just pretty much identical, but that way you get that 223 gematria and that 113 gematria. It's no coincidence. And, note that bonesmen, like Holocaust, like Zyklon B, like gift gas with an exclamation mark, like Prusik, bonesmen equals 33 in English full reduction. Something tells me that Mr. Haber was associated with the Synagogue of Satan and possibly Skull of Bones. You know, I'm not going to say for sure that the Bushes have Nazi connections, but I have heard that. Don't take my word for it, though. I mean, really, because I don't know, but the Gematria seems to fit. I just wanted to point out that, you know, here's a excerpt from Wikipedia. Among prominent alumni are former President Chief Justice William Howard Taft. Let's see. George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush. And look at all these other people that you never hear about. You know, Chauncey Depew, Supreme Court Justices Morrison R. Waite, Potter Stewart, James Jesus Angleton. What kind of name is that? He was a Supreme Court Justice. How about this? Mother of the Central Intelligence Agency, Henry Stimson, was part of Skull and Bones. And people don't care. People don't care. Are you kidding me? A secret society out of Yale that equals 33, just like Zyklon B, just like Holocaust. William B. Washburn, governor of Massachusetts. Henry Luce, founder and publisher of Time, Life, Fortune, and Sports Illustrated. Time magazine, Life magazine, Fortune magazine, and Sports Illustrated magazines. Are you kidding me? This is not good. This is like horrible. Are you kidding me? And I just want to note that here's the last sentence here on this excerpt from Wikipedia about Skull and Bones. George W. Bush wrote in his autobiography, "In my senior year, I joined Skull and Bones, a secret society. So secret, I can't say anything more." Fuck you. You know? Screw you, dude. Freaking dick. When I asked what it meant that he and Bush, he's talking about John Kerry, he and Bush were both bonesmen. Former president candidate John Kerry, who ran against George W. Bush in the same election, he said not much because it's secret. You can't talk about it. And look at this end citation here. The end citation is 22 and 23. Like 223, Skull and Crossbones, the Synagogue of Satan, and also nitrogen fertilizer. But I'm digressing into a different presentation here. Let's get back on focus. The Nazis are said to have killed millions of Jewish people in the gassing chambers. Chambers equals 33 in English full reduction. And just like Holocaust and Zyklon B and gift gas, right? And now we're going to get into Haber's relationship with chemical gas in World War I. So, like I said, he didn't have an indirect relationship with chemical warfare with Zyklon B. He also had a direct relationship during World War I and with the German military. You remember, he was Jewish and he was a German chemist at the same time, which tells you that the Nazis and Jews perhaps weren't so against each other, right? We're talking about conspiracy, right? Many groups conspirating with each other to manipulate the world into thinking something is happening that isn't really what's happening, right? So he's a Jewish German chemist working for the Nazis, and it just so happened that he died right before World War I, you know, right around World War I's start. And, you know, there are a lot of German chemists that came to the United States after World War II. A lot of them worked on NASA. I can't remember the guy's name, but he's based on Dr. Strangelove, the movie by Stanley Kubrick. The guy is a German chemist, right, doing all this nuclear research. Anyway. Um, so Fritz Haber, he suggested to the German military that they use chlorine gas on the battlefield, right? And the chemical abbreviation for chlorine is Cl, and Cl in English extended is 33. And English extended is a lot like the Hebrew and Greek gematrias, but it's adjusted for English. So I'm going to count it. I'm going to count it as not a coincidence that it equals 33 as well. Because, right, we're talking about 33. Fritz Haber suggested that chlorine gas be used as an effective weapon, and he said that it would shorten the length of the war. So what they did is that they used chlorine gas in the Second Battle of Ypres, which lasted for 33 days. No, I am not kidding. And in case if you didn't get my nuance there, he said that it would shorten the length of the war, and they used it at the beginning of the Battle of Ypres, and the Battle of Ypres lasted for over a month. In fact, it lasted 33 days. 33 days just like Zyklon B, just like Holocaust, just like Prusik, just like Chambers. Oh my, oh my. Indeed, it is a grand conspiracy. You know, go look it up yourself, but Battle of Ypres, the second one, lasted from April 22nd to May 25th, 1915. 33 days. Unbelievable. It's amazing. Really. And I just wanted to have a little last note here. Remember that hydrogen cyanide, prussic acid, which is the precursor to Zyklon B, it relates to the color blue because it was isolated from the color blue. And from the color Prussian blue. And the ion that they isolated was ferrocyanide, which looks like the Star of David, right down here. Right? And the Israeli flag has a Star of David on it, and also has the color blue. And, you know, Israel kicked off in like 1947, right? Right after World War I. You know, I gotta rub it in your face. I'm right here. Listen to me, not your stupid little textbooks. Right? There was this book that came out called The Boy in the Stripe Pajamas. I wish I had read it because then I would know more about it. But I just want you to note that the color that they used in all of it is blue, right? The stripes that they used on the Holocaust prisoners were blue stripes, right? Also note that the original edition of The Boy in the Striped Pajamas was spelled with a Y instead of a J. Like pajamas, right? And if you don't know about my research on the number 314 and its relation to pi, and, you know, my research on the English duos Gematria cipher, go look it up in my video history. But py is a character in English duos Gematria alphabet that is significant to the value pi, right? 3.14. And 3.14 signifies a circle. And what we know about the circle in occultic research is that it signifies a magic circle, and it signifies you getting trapped inside of it, you know? And what the conspiracy research is about is breaking this circle that everybody's trapped in. Everybody's going in circles with their research. They can't think to the end, right? And it's just interesting that they spelled it pajamas. And pajamas, right? The boy in the striped pajamas equals 330 in satanic. Pajama also equals 33 in English full reduction. And note that stripe equals 33 in English full reduction, just like Zyklon B, just like Holocaust, just like Chambers, just like Prusik. And again, concentration camp, CC, looks a lot like 33. And there's this just overwhelming use of blue. So coincidental that the Zyklon B chemical was isolated from this ion called ferrocyanide, isolated from the color Prussian blue. Ferrocyanide ion looks like Star of David. There's a blue Star of David with two stripes on the Israeli flag. And you know what? I didn't look up when the Israeli flag was founded. If it's after World War II, this is going to be amazing. But let's check it out. Israeli flag. Founding, right? Founding. Oh my, oh my, oh my. You see this? This is a great way to end the video. The Israeli flag wasn't even adopted until 1948. Are you kidding me? Stripe equals 33, Holocaust equals 33, Zyklon B equals 33, Prussic acid equals 33. Are you kidding me? This is big news. Big, big, big news. And with that, you have well, you take this research and you tell somebody about it.